Man, Ncuti is killing it. Killing it. This video is gonna be a little bit different, a little bit weird, because it's gonna be a bit off the cuff, and also I just haven't been making any videos about the new series, or is it season now because it's on Disney Plus? That's a whole other tangent. I just want to talk about the latest episode of Doctor Who. Russell T Davies, the new season of Doctor Who with Ncuti. I love this new episode. Not in Bubble, like, man, that was so good. I think it really, it hit all the notes of things I feel, the opposite of like what I was afraid was gonna happen. When RTD came back, I was obviously very happy. Because I love that run. You know, I love a lot of stuff about that run. But there were some very lackluster aspects, especially when it came to the black characters on the show. And I feel very complicated about it because I think Martha is a great character. I think Martha's a fantastic character. And maybe it's just because Freema is like phenomenal. I don't know. And we're not going to talk about Noel Clarke because he's a bad person. I think a big problem that Doctor Who has had for a very long time, in my opinion, is how utterly British it is. Yeah, that was a statement I just said. But just how utterly British it is. Like, I feel that the showrunners of Doctor Who have felt a little too much allegiance to maintaining the government mandated histories of their country when it comes to their historical figures, and when it comes to depicting things that we know all too well to be true in the U.S. I mean, you know, Winston Churchill, you know, being buddies with the Doctor is a whole thing. And then there's just like going into, I think Moffat handled the subject of racism the best out of any showrunner, but that's not a high bar by any means. I think Thin Ice is really good, but it also maintains the idea that racism is a thing of the past, and also consistency across the different eras of the show is that modern racism is relegated to America, which, like, we suck. But guys, you're the English. You brought it over. You brought it over. So let's not whitewash our history here. But you know, that's a tangent of its own. But I really just wanted to address how perfect this episode was in quelling my fears of repeated mistakes on behalf of RTD, who, again, I love the guy, but you know, he made plenty of mistakes back then when it came to progressive writing. it was, there was a lot of stuff that was extremely progressive for its time, but the key word is for its time. Some stuff just didn't age well. Like, let's not talk about Mrs. Flesh Lady from episode 2 of series 1. But yeah. RTD. Let's not do that again. Let's really not. But I really wanted to just like, this episode was great. Just really great. I mean, I just love I love that they kind of just draw us in with the surface level concept of, oh, you know, it's like, it's TikTok, but it's futuristic. You know, like all these, you know, 19 to 20-year-olds are like obsessed with their phones, and they're stuck in their little worlds, in their little bubble. Like they lull us in with this simplistic concept, based on a reality that we know all too well, which is, it's so Doctor Who. And then they, you know, drop these little hints throughout the episode, which I've read like Twitter thread upon Twitter thread talking about the little breadcrumbs throughout the episode of like what the episode is actually about. Which there are a lot of themes in the episode. Is, you know, the themes of like, there's, you know, social media, the like mini theme of idols with Ricky September, and also just colonialism in general is a big aspect of the episode. And in the idea of, we get introduced to this pseudo lead for the episode, which happens a lot in Doctor Who. You know, a pseudo lead that you only know for like one episode. It was a very Blink situation, where we basically have the Doctor and his companion directing the protagonist on their way to like survive, but the twist is our pseudo lead isn't good, and that's just so genius to me. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's a really interesting twist on a played out concept in Doctor Who. And it's especially genius when we get to the end, and basically, to, you know, cut a story short, I don't want to like give a full summary of the episode, because I think you should just watch it if you haven't. If you haven't, why are you watching this video? Just watch the episode instead of listening to me talk. And basically it's a, you know, future Earth-like planet, and basically we got a bunch of like 19 to 20-year-olds who are plopped on this planet. They work only 2 hours a day. They're all white. I mean, like, it didn't take me that long to realize that they were all white. I know it's different from different people, but yeah, it was like the Barbie movie if there was no diversity. So it's basically the Barbie movie if you like just cut out a little bit. I totally didn't say that. I'll just cut that out. You know, their parents are off in the home world, you know, mommy and daddy and all that. And what's the big twist of the episode? There are these bug aliens who are eating people. And the mystery of the episode is why. And how do we get our pseudo-protagonist out of this situation into safety? Throughout the episode, basically, our pseudo-protagonist, who is really just an antagonist because she sucks hard. Her name is Lindy, by the way, which is, you know, the whitest name ever. Though, I mean, just look at all the other names in this episode. I mean, Ricky, for example. Also, you can't tell me that he isn't based on Rick Springfield. Like, I don't think I've seen anybody bring that up. But it's the most minor detail ever, but it definitely illustrates the idea of like the teen idol thing. Not unlike Billy Idol, but we're not touching that. We're not touching that. But basically throughout the episode, the Doctor and Ruby are trying to lead her out of there. She is pretty receptive to Ruby, for reasons unknown. Just swiping her in comparison to when the Doctor tries to help, she just blocks him. Which is an indicator as we move along and get these breadcrumbs. And honestly, it's mind-boggling to me that people like don't see what this episode is saying before the the ending of the episode. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just maybe I'm just more receptive to it. I don't know. But I feel like it was pretty clear, especially to the point when Lindy is like, guys, listen to him, but we'll discipline him later. What? Say it again? What do you say? One more time? Like, when you hear that, I don't know how that, goes through your ear. And you don't, hear colonizer. That's all I'm gonna say on that. But basically what I'm talking about is the idea that I think Doctor Who for a long time has hidden away from really attacking the systemic idea of racism. Especially in a modern cultural sense. I think they've ignored it a lot of the time and basically put it in the black and white sense of, oh, it happened a long time ago. You saw those pictures of Martin Luther King Jr. It's so old. It just happened in America. And we're not like those Americans. We've got absolutely no connection to any of that stuff whatsoever. Totally. But anyway, the ending of the episode is heartbreaking. I just don't have any words for it. Basically, the Doctor leads Lindy to safety. She is helped by Ricky September until she sells him out to be killed by the now hostile Dot robot, which we found out was leading all of them to their deaths because they hate the people they serve. But yeah, she sells out her teen idol because at the end of the day, cowards will sell out to anyone to save their skin, and they'll just smile afterwards, get on their boats and go tame another land. The Doctor offers to take them away to the stars and find them a new place to live, a new planet to live upon, for peace, give them some peace and give them some safety. But all of the remaining inhabitants of this ghastly future say no, because they couldn't be in the same space as him. They'd be contaminated. Why? Because he's different. Because he's not white like them. He's not rich like them. He's not them. The doctor, for the first time in his lives, can't save the day because they don't want to be saved, because they are trapped in their own bigotry, because they are sealed away. Their fate is sealed. This is the doctor. This alien. This lonely alien, the last of their kind. As far as they know, the last of their kind. Who has loved and cherished and led the human race by their hand ever since they climbed out of the sludge. And he's rejected. He's rejected. This moment is terrifying. It's more than sad. It's more than horror at the fact that this man who has protected the human race for hundreds and hundreds of years being rejected, his help being rejected, him being rejected because of the way he looks. It's worse than horror. It's worse than sadness. It's stupid. It's just casual. It's real life. Because at the end of the day, the real monsters were not the bug creatures. It was not God. The real monsters were them. Something to think about when you go home tonight, when you go on in your day and make your little choices. Every little choice, the way you talk to people, the people you talk to, the people that you surround yourself with, the little choices define us. A lot of people don't see this as what it is. People see it as this big twist, this big shocking reveal at the end of this episode. And I'm not criticizing anybody about how they enjoy a Doctor Who episode or how they come to the conclusion at the end of this episode of Doctor Who. We are all very different people. We have all been raised very different ways. We have all had very different experiences, grown up around different peoples of different cultures, and that reflects in how we perceive the world. With all that being said, when you come to the end of this episode, I think that any person of color would clearly understand the situation before Lindy ever says outright, "You are not one of us. You, sir, are not one of us." Because it doesn't start there. It ends there. It was a steady progression throughout the episode, and I know clearly from listening to the reactions to this episode from people of color on Twitter and on YouTube that it's a very familiar situation to them. It's a very familiar experience to them. And I think this episode proves to be a really interesting experiment in exposing our biases and exposing our perspectives, our built-in social flaws. Now, is this episode some work of genius by Russell T Davies? I don't know. It's really not my position to say, because the story is not about me. It's not about me in the idea of it doesn't affect me. So I don't think I have the most important perspective on it. And I even hesitated to just make this video in the first place. But I think it's a really important episode of the show, and I think it's something I really wanted to put my take out on. But again, my take on this episode, while I do appreciate having the platform to give it, is the least important take to have on an episode of this nature. Please listen to people of color on this episode, whether they like it or they hate it. Please listen to them. I'm going to link some really, really great people that I think had some really interesting and nuanced takes on this episode. Some people, and the people I will be listing are people who hated the episode and people who loved the episode. And I think it's really interesting to hear both sides there, so we can get a fully nuanced picture of this episode and what Doctor Who needs to do better in the future. Because I don't want our takeaway from this episode for this to be, oh, this is the greatest episode of Doctor Who on racism ever. Because if this is our best take on racism, we have a lot farther to go. And I know I've spent this whole video gushing about this episode, because I do think it is a really good episode of Doctor Who. But this did not in any way make up for the sins of the past. And this does not say, oh, we gave you the crumbs, now we can, slack off for the rest of the series. That's not how it is. And a point that's been made several times, a billion times, and is an important take to bring to the table, and it's this: we need black writers for a black Doctor. That's just a fact. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think, if I was running Doctor Who, I don't think the showrunner should be writing the majority of the episodes, especially when we have, like, a shortened season. I think that the showrunner should have a hand in all of the episodes in small ways to kind of, like, craft the overall story across the season to make sure it's all consistent in the storyline. But I don't think, and as much as I've loved the episodes this season, I don't think Russell T Davies should be writing the amount of episodes that he is, because I think we need a more diverse amount of point of views in our Doctor Who stories. And that starts with bringing in black writers, because whether you like it or not, this is a black doctor, and there's a lot that comes with that. And I find Russell T Davies specifically was never really great at writing black characters or talking about black issues. So I think it's important to have that accountability there. I do think he's doing a lot better. I think he's this whole era is definitely him trying to make up for a lot of things that he did wrong in his first run on the show. And I do think that's admirable. But I also think that just because you're trying to make up for mistakes you've made doesn't mean you should be the one to correct all of them. Like it shouldn't just be him, magic erasing the mistakes of the show in the show. He needs to basically actions speak louder than words. So bring on more talent. Bring on black talent. Bring on people who can speak more personally about the types of experiences that you're trying to display on the show. That's the most important part.